Hey everybody, Mike McWilliams, Upstairs to the Right Music channel. Thank you so much for joining in today. My good friend Jock Richmond is here with us. We're just sitting here reminiscing about the old school model of music as compared to the new model of music. We're going to talk about a
Right.
couple of things here briefly just to get you guys up to speed to where we're at. The first thing, we're going to start off how Jock and I got into the music business. Jock and I, we have been together since college.
Yep.
And when we got out of school, he and I had the great idea of me borrowing some money and us building our own studio. and
Yeah.
as a
Yay.
yeah, and we kind of got ripped off on that one. It's a long story, not
Yeah.
a pleasant story. But then through a good friend of ours, Andre, Andre's last name
Taylor. Andre
Andre
Taylor.
Taylor, talented singer that we knew at that time, we were introduced to a guy named Andrews.
Andrews.
Reggie Andrews. And
Hmm.
Reggie was not just a educator, he was also a teacher, he was also a philanthropist, in terms of the way that he openly gave to the community. Really just a
Yeah.
lovely giving guy. Musician,
Yeah.
producer, songwriter. He wrote "Let It Whip" for the Daz Band. Produced a lot of horns arrangements for Rick James. Did a lot of work.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Earth, Wind, and Fire. Did a lot of work with them. And we came across him through our mutual acquaintance Andre. And the South Central unit was there for producers and musicians and guys like us who wanted to get into the industry. And this became our end. So take over the story from there. What you remember about the SCU?
Right after we had that studio, our little private studio on Slauson.
Yeah.
Shortly after that, that's when the whole Reggie Andrews season and SCU season came into form, and
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
um,
Yeah, this is a good
it
time.
was a beautiful, yeah, it's a beautiful synergy. We would have meetings where we would write songs. Reggie had studios in a facility in LA, and writers would come in, myself, you included, and we would write, and we would develop our, sharpen the tools.
Because
That's
Reggie,
all.
that's when he'd sit there and he'd say the hook there is bad, or I don't know
Yeah.
why, or that the intro's too long, or he would really
Right.
hone us down to learning how to write.
Right. We didn't have to figure it out on our own. We had someone who was a mentor, who helped foray us into being songwriters and engineers and producers. And he had the equipment there for us. We can come in and we can learn on it. And a lot of people came through Reggie.
Yeah, we were
Through
talking about that before. We were talking about
yeah.
Anastasia came through. Boy,
Right.
she could sing. She could sing
Right.
that. She had a set of lungs on her. I got a story about
Yeah.
her. I'll share that another time.
We
But
got Tyrese. We
Tyrese
got
Gibson, yeah.
uh, Joe Albright came through there. A lot of jazz people. Patrice Rushen,
Yeah.
um, Michelle Lay, Good Girls, Farside, Tyrese Gibson. Like
Yeah.
that whole Lock SCU era. There were a lot of very, very um, influential and well-to-do artists that came out of that, and we were. It was a blessing just to be a part of that, and God rest Reggie's soul right now.
Reggie passed away a couple last
Yep.
year, and yeah, I'm gonna miss that brother. He was a what I would call a solid man,
Yeah,
solid man.
right,
But
right,
and that was our end. That was Jock and I's end. In the old model, you have to understand, in the '90s, the business was just flush with cash. And
right,
from SCU, we got the chance to do remixes for Motown. We got a chance to meet Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis at their studio,
right,
talk to them.
right.
We got a chance to do a lot of things. Um, but then of course I started working for Babyface. Jock got his first publishing deal and flew off to London to work with.
Um, Billy Piper I worked with through Chrysalis Music Publishing. That
Yeah.
was the publishing deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And just a ton of other acts
Now,
out there.
now, Jacques, why was it? And this can segue into the new business model. Why was it that it was flush with money during that time?
All right, so I'm glad we primed on this. So this is uh, uh, it won't be hard for me to go back
Yeah,
to the book.
yeah, we did our homework. Yeah,
So back in those days, the music industry, record companies had the advantage of having income from what's called mechanical royalties. And mechanical royalties, the name mechanical goes all the way back to before records, before CDs or cassettes or vinyl, all the way back to the days when music was played at home or in bars and clubs
yeah,
on a piano.
yeah.
And the pianos were these electronic pianos that had these scrolls that you would
Piano,
put
right.
inside the piano, and they'd have these little holes punched in them.
Yeah.
And they were mechanical machines. And when you would operate them, the scrolls would turn, and because those holes are punched in, those would trigger the hammers on the piano,
Like a
which would
music
play
box.
like a music box. So the name mechanical carried over from that era, and it went from the scrolls on the pianos to records, to vinyl, 8-track cassettes.
Yeah.
What do you call those? Regular cassettes, CDs.
Yeah. Yep.
That's where it carried over from, and they call them mechanical royalties because every time you would sell a unit, a portion of that money would go to the record company and also to the actual artist. They can get a portion of that sale, which was the royalty, the mechanical royalty. So when the days of Napster and the internet came into its full bloom, people began to understand that they didn't need to go out and buy these.
They didn't have to go to Virgin. They didn't have to go to Tower. They didn't have to do that.
They didn't have to go there. So now that whole sale, when you're talking about an album that would be, I don't know, $12.99, a CD $20.
Yeah.
That money that the artist would get, the record labels would get, and everyone else that would get their cut, that whole portion of income was gone overnight.
Yep.
So that amounted to hundreds of millions of dollars for these labels. They would sell, think about it.
Well,
$20. Yeah. One artist, $20 for a CD, and they would go triple, quadruple platinum.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
And this goes to the old model in terms of artist development. There was an A&R department at every record label we work with closely, and these guys' job was to develop an artist not just through one album or a single, but through several albums, and to get them to the point. A lot of I was using earlier example of Wham, how their first single, Club Wham, came out, and it didn't do well at all. The record label didn't throw them out. They said, hey, go out on the road, do some touring, pick up some fans, come back. We'll record another album, which they did. They got a lucky shot going on top of the Pops, and the rest is history, because the record labels were in the business of developing the artists that they signed. However, when that money left, so did that. So that's a good segue into the new model, which is basically if you're an artist who wishes to get signed, which has its pluses and minuses now, more minuses than it used to. You really have to have yourself a following already. They want you to already have done the work of the A&R department. They want you to to done all the labor, all the recording, everything. And they'll grace you through their marketing and distribution system, which will put you in a bigger loop. However, the paycheck may not be as big as it used to back in the day.
May not be as big. That's right. And you gotta remember that money from those in part from those mechanical royalties. That was the money that budgeted the major recording studios.
Yep.
$1 million plus investments into these recording studios with these A's and
Yeah.
SSL rooms and $40,000-$60,000 Studer tape machines
Oh
that
yeah.
they would have two of,
Two of them.
you know,
Yeah.
and per diems and all of these,
Not to mention the smaller studio rooms, the artist recording rooms that would have their own boards and their own recording systems.
Right. You know, the money is gone, so all of a sudden, all of those major studios, all those rooms, gone.
Gone.
And see the advantage of, yes, the money was gone, and it made it harder. It made the model for getting signed and getting into a recording situation with a company different. You have to understand also that the internet and technology excels so fast in that little bit of time that you can, as an artist or as a writer, as a musician, you can do all of that stuff now from home with a laptop.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't need $1 million. You didn't need $30,000 per single.
There was a barrier of entry in order to record on a professional level at that time.
Right.
It's funny to me, we were talking about how I was working for Babyface and working in the SSL room. Remember, I took you in there. He had those two Studers.
Yeah.
He had those two, you know, the 48-track room. Yeah, and it's funny to me that all of that is irrelevant.
God. I mean, right now, literally, if I wanted to, in my bedroom, I can record on a Neve setup, top to bottom, from the inputs all the way through the mix, sitting on my couch. What do I need to go spend $1,500 for 12 hours at Skip Saylor's for?
Yep.
You know, I could do it right here.
Yep.
You know, so technology made it very, very accessible to artists to develop, and because there's no need for budgets, they could take their time to do it.
Yes.
Whereas you know, you were budgeted back in the old model. You're not budgeted now because you're on your own time.
It's very rare, and that's a very good point, Jacques. Excellent point. It's very rare, even in the old model, that artists would have the ability of somebody like Prince to rent out on a continuous basis up there at Sunset Sound. He had Studio A booked out for the entire year or years on end. That's because of that money in that model. That would never happen these days.
No,
never.
It wasn't. In terms of money, you just couldn't afford to do it. Not the way you could do it now.
Right.
You know. So the thing about it is, yes, the trade-off for losing that income is technology and the ability for artists now to be able to fully control, have total autonomy over their own artist development. You can, Reggie used to tell us, if you want to be a great musician, you know, you have to learn how to backwards engineer songs. Like, you have to learn how these guys made these songs. Okay, well, doing it with vinyl in a studio and listening to things back 20, 30, 25 years ago is gone. I can pull up a song on YouTube, you know, and spend all night on a Mac Mini, figuring out and fine-tuning my skill right here. So that's the trade-off. But the thing about it is that now that technology has made the artist development more 100% in the hands of the artist now, record companies they understand that now. So they're not going to spend the energy and the resources now, or they don't, to go out and find the artist. You don't need you can tour like we did then, but you know, you could use social media to build your fan base now.
Yeah, without really leaving your house.
Right. Or your community. So the thing is, record companies understand that now. So these budgets that were allotted for artist development, what do they need it for? I mean, if they're trying to keep their overhead low and really take advantage of the margins, that they could make. What do they need development deals
Well,
for?
that's what I was
You know,
alluding to. When you do, and I believe these days because those margins are squeezed, if you do sign with a label and you get into a 360 deal where they own you, they own your image.
right,
Even if you put up a YouTube video, they own that. Your
right,
marketing, your touring, your T-shirts, all of those things, in order to supplement the losses that they were making on the mechanical
right,
royalties. And you, as an
right,
artist, sure you have access to this marketing and distribution system they've set up, which is nothing to shake a stick at, and it really could make you, or they'll make you into a star. However, the offside of that is that your paycheck got a whole lot smaller.
right, right. And that's what 360 means. 360, it's it means the money.
Yep.
so,
We in the hole. Yeah.
so instead of you just getting record sales royalties and I guess I don't even know if it would be concerts back in those days, but the
No
record royalty
royalties.
and the radio royalties. Oh no, they 360. All of the money that's coming
That's
in
right.
now is part of the contract.
That's right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
touring, television,
Yep.
movies,
Yeah. Back in the our
T-shirts.
day, an artist went out on tour. They were given a certain budget for that tour. However, any of the proceeds they paid back the whatever they borrowed to go out on tour, and they kept the rest. Now that's
Right,
done. That's gone.
right. So
So I'm
yeah,
just saying that if we look at the old model in terms of technology, in terms of the actual contracts and the outcomes, it's not looking very good for the modern artist. Sure, you have autonomy in creating your own music to the way that you want to. However, having a guy like Reggie around when we were developing and saying, hey, do this, do that, do that. That sounds. I remember I was doing a remix for a song at a big studio. Reggie came in, sat down to the mix I did, and he said, it's too dark. I mean, within
right,
3 seconds, and I had been working on this mix all afternoon, all day, and so, I just don't know if they have that. I mean, do they need it? Maybe, I don't know, but it's an advantage to me because it's served us well.
well, see, we would have a Reggie who would be a mentor and who would help us with those things. Now, in the old model, now you could put something together in your bedroom and put it up on YouTube and have the entire world be
Your critic.
your critic.
Yeah.
And you can remember there were stories of Prince. He would go out to his live stage over at Paisley Park, and he would just be writing songs while the live audience was there, and just watching how they react to what he says. And you, it's similar to that, where now you have the entire world who can tell you if something is working or not,
Yeah, if they show up, you got to attract them
if they
in.
show up.
Yeah.
Marketing is key now.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
You know,
They got to show up.
so old model, new model, man. It gives the writers, the artists, and the producers way more control. It takes a lot of the leverage that record companies had. Away.
The ways
Yeah,
to get into the business. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right, right. And to the business savvy, artists, what do you need a label for? You know,
Do
so
you think
things
the
change.
labels, but the labels won't go away? You're not saying that.
No, they won't go away. They provide the avenue for an artist to scale up
Right.
because they still have the connections in radio. They still have multi regions, and they can still get in there and help an artist who can only hit a certain plateau really really scale up. So I mean, there's an advantage to it.
Yeah.
You know, but I just think that the whole music model and you know by I'm not gonna I would say the movie business is I think it's a close it's going to be close for them, a close second. because with these iPhones and how much the technology is for people to be able to put their hands on. You don't need $100,000 camera to record a movie. Now,
No,
they're doing it on
no,
our.
no. With a good editing software and a decent, inexpensive camera, you could,
Right,
and imagination, you could put together something
right,
that could beat out
right,
Hollywood, certainly.
right. So the models have changed, and I'm glad we got a chance. And I hope that your audience um, I'm really, really, really curious to see how they react to this because it's it's a different paradigm now.
It's a different world.
And
Yeah, I mean, well,
yeah,
you and we lived in we were lucky. It's just, it's like being in Japan at the time when I showed up in Tokyo. You had to be there
yeah,
then. That was, and it'll
yeah,
never happen again.
right.
You had to be there.
To the new artists, to the new writers now that are coming in that will never know those years. They're coming in at a time where technology is just it's advanced so much that I don't even think that they really understand what levers they have
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
You
yeah. I
know,
understand your
When-
point. I understand your point.
yeah,
So your
but
conclusion basically here is we're both kind of in agreement that the artists have more leverage now than they do because again, record companies don't produce anything. They are merely a conduit, a way as you put it, scaling up. They
mhm,
know they used to even somewhat be in the business of developing artists. They're not in that business anymore. They are really through necessity just you know there to be a
right.
conduit.
I would even go so far as to suggest just to your viewing audience the opportunity for them to deep dive with you, man, and just to do a sideline where they can contact you and really talk about what the what the roadmap is for developing themselves
Well,
as
yeah,
a
on
artist.
this channel, it's one of the reasons why today we're talking about it.
Yeah,
On this channel, we really do focus on a wide variety of things, and this is something I did want to touch on today. Down in the
right.
comments section, guys, I'd like to hear your comments. Jock loves to read your comments and hear from them as well. We
Yes.
appreciate it from the last show. What you think about what do you think about today's content, about today's subject, the old model versus the new model? Now, some of you guys out there may not know the old model. You may. You certainly all know the new model. So, what do you think? Give us your thoughts and opinions. Jock, thank you so much, man, for taking the time to show up today again.
But that's
I'm sorry I didn't get the hours right.
no, that's okay. I'm up, man.
All
I
right.
got coffee.
All right. Well, thank you, well, man, as I say over here, and I will talk to you soon.